The Austin housing market in 2025 was not easy. In fact, most real estate agents struggled. The housing market dropped about 2% year over year. There are some agents that had success helping both end buyers and sellers, and they had success with investors. Now, my guest today is Jeff McElroy with Real Broker. We're in a year where Jeff had his greatest year helping clients actually transact. In fact, so much so that he got an award with Real Broker, becoming an elite agent. Secondly, he made Platinum Top 50, a huge award for Austin, Texas. I want to talk with Jeff today about what you should be doing looking in 2026 for investing, unconventional ways to invest in 2026, and what should we be looking at as an end user, whether you're selling and buying. Jeff, welcome to really the new studio.
Oh, thanks, Jeremy. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, look, I want to jump right into it. Look, you've had a lot of accolades. You've done a lot of things in the last year. And one of the things that I like to do is talk to agents that have been crushing it and doing things really unconventionally, because I heard a lot of agents in 2025, their whole businesses were gone. They were decimated. Sales were down. But you didn't have that problem. I want to get your thoughts before we talk about the things that you've done and what buyers and sellers should be looking at. What do you think the outlook for 2026 in the Austin housing market looks like?
So I think 2026 is going to look similar to 2025 in terms of valuation. I think we're going to see more people get off the fence and come back into the market with interest rates going down. But I think we're going to see a lot of the same as we saw in 2025. Where buyers and sellers equally disadvantages. Buyers will think it's a buyer's market. Sellers are going to want to hold their price because they have low interest rates. So it's going to take some, call it collaborative negotiations to be able to reach to make deals happen. And sellers are going to have to get realistic, and buyers are going to have to make decisions.
Yeah, I think that's what I saw a lot of too, is just having that hard conversation with both buyers and sellers. On the buyer side, sometimes our offers were a little too unrealistic, and some of them were perfectly realistic. And then on the seller side, some sellers only had so much to actually give up, and some were just stuck looking at 2022 prices. Is that what you saw a lot of in 25?
Well, so we had a mix. We were heavier on the sell side. We did a little over 81 transactions. About 60% were listings. And the listings that were in good condition, where the owners either took great care of the property, made them look like new houses, we saw multiple offers and homes selling above asking price. And that's what you would expect, because there was a lot of inventory. People were selling either death, divorce, disaster, or unwilling to put any money into those. And those sat there. And then when those eventually sell, you end up chasing the market down with price reductions. So I look at the drop in pricing, not as my view, and I haven't done the math on it, is that it wasn't a drop in value overall. It's that homes that should have never been priced high had to take a price reduction because of the condition of it. So nobody's going to come in and pay top dollar for a house that needs to be renovated immediately without some type of equity uplift for doing that work. So homes that are in great condition sell fast and at the price offered or above. Homes that are not, they sit until the price gets right and adjusted for the condition.
Did you notice in 25, and I'm sure this will carry over into 26, a lot of sellers who just didn't want to do the work on the homes to get them ready to sell?
Well, I think I haven't been doing this that long, about 6 years in real estate, is that I think that problem has always existed. With the idea, why don't we offer them $1,500 concession for the $10,000 flooring job? Is people are afraid to spend the money, or they simply don't have the money out of their cash flow to be able to do that work. And that's always going to be a challenge. Like before I got here, we have a seller who's selling. My contractor went over, $1,500 to repair the roof. We're going to reglaze the bathroom. We're going to do some painting, because all of those things are going to make a difference in the sale. And that home will sell really fast because it's in great condition. Had you not done those things, it could make the difference between, it's not necessarily a difference of does it sell for top dollar, it's does it sell at all?
Right.
Because in this market, buyers do have choices, and they are going to pick over and over the homes that are in great condition, and it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, there's reports out already in the beginning of the year. I think it was Realtor.com or maybe Redfin just put out an article saying that Austin is the #1 buyer's market for 2026. And so when you have buyers that have options, obviously,
Yeah.
why would I spend the extra money on fixing up this home when I can move into maybe a newer home, maybe get creative with financing with a builder who is going to offer me, a 3%, interest rate or an ARM or a fixed, which kind of makes me want to get into my real first question is in 2025, I'm sure you had a lot of them. So I want to talk about some examples of unconventional financing because this was a sticking point for a lot of buyers and really for sellers as well. As when you have 6% interest rate, 7% interest rate, why would you sell a home with 2.5% interest rate to then go buy a home for 6%? Again, if you're a buyer, the amount of money that you have available gets eaten up with that high interest rate and obviously taxes. So what are some unconventional financing things that you've done that you think will carry into 26?
Well, I think we're gonna continue to see sellers offering financing.
Okay.
And so
Seller financing.
So seller financing, the tricky thing about seller financing, it usually doesn't just happen. Usually the deals, you back into those.
Okay.
Right. So you have a home that somebody wants to buy and then it's priced a little high, but it's in a great condition. And somebody offers owner financing and then the agent has to explain it to the seller. And that's actually not as easy as it sounds. I'm going through that with my father right now. We have a property we're selling in Washington State. The agent and I talked and she tried to explain owner financing to him and he's massively confused. And so it was kind of an insight that sellers don't understand it,
Right.
buyers don't understand it, and agents don't understand it.
So let's make it simple then.
Yeah.
So what is owner financing and how can I get into an owner finance deal?
So let's say a property is for sale. You put down your down payment and then you make payments to the owner.
Okay.
Just that simple.
So how would that work? Like let's say I find a house that's listed at $500,000. How does this actually work?
So the one way I would look at it is if you make your offer using the seller financing addendum, and you say you're going to put 10% down or 20% down, and then you're going to make payments to the seller for the rest of it.
And so does the seller then make the payments to the bank? Because do they have a mortgage on it? If they own it free and clear? Is it cash? How can a seller utilize themselves seller
I
financing?
intentionally started with just the simple mechanics.
Okay.
You put down a down payment.
Yep.
A loan servicer collects the payment from you,
Okay.
makes a payment to the other owner. If there's another bank involved, meaning the other loan isn't paid off, they make the payments to that bank.
Okay. So the servicer then pays the bank or whoever is
Correct.
the other lien
And
holder.
this happens all the time. It's
Okay.
super common. It's 100% legal. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's really that simple.
Okay.
Right. So if there's another loan that's not being paid off, you're going to essentially have two mortgages. You're going to have a mortgage between you as the buyer and the seller, managed by a loan servicer. They're going to continue to make payments to the other mortgage company until that mortgage is paid off, and they're going to manage all the accounting for you.
Okay. So I have a buyer. Again, we'll go back
Yep.
to this scenario where I come to a seller that has a home, $500,000. We negotiate $500,000. I'm going to put 10% down. So that 10% then either goes to the seller or does it go to the other bank? Does it go to the seller in that scenario to get them out?
Well, it's going to depend on the situation.
Situation.
But let's say it's $500,000 purchase, $50,000 down. That $50,000 is going to pay the closing costs, agent commissions, or whatever else is involved. It's going to pay for a title policy, and then whatever is less would go to the owner.
Okay.
And then the loan servicer then collects the payments and pays the mortgage.
So this wouldn't work for every scenario, obviously. So somebody bought a home in let's say 2022, right? No, let's say they bought a home in 2024, right? At a 6% interest rate,
Yeah.
right? And now you come in, there's probably not a lot of equity, or maybe there's not a lot of equity in that situation. Maybe they only put 5% down when they initially bought the house. Now they're trying to do seller financing. What is the interest rate? Like, would the interest rate have to be 6%? Would it be a lower percent?
Well, in order for that to work, the interest rate is likely going to need to be the same or higher.
Okay.
But usually it's going to be the same as the original note. But if it's a 3% note, you can charge 6%. That's where you can make some profit as the the seller of the home,
Mm-hmm.
provided you're not just selling it to an investor, right? How it usually works on the market is you have an investor who understands these things, and there's very little equity in the house. So they agree to take over the payments
Yeah.
on the original mortgage. So that seller may or may not get anything at all at closing, but they walk away from the obligation to make the payments, but not legally the obligation to make the payments.
Got it.
So the person buying the home is going to put down that down payment, which often goes to the investor, but then the buyer is contractually obligated and legally obligated to make the payments to the loan servicer, which then pays the seller's bank. And then if there's anything left over, it goes to the seller. It needs to be done
Yeah.
correctly. It needs to be done by a lawyer. There's a great lawyer and title company here in town who's an expert in these type of transactions.
Good.
And they're 100% legal, but it's not something you should improvise and just do on your own.
Right.
Right? Because I've seen situations where this happened in the pandemic where somebody bought a home, they call it like a subject to type transaction. The person put the home into forbearance. She continued to make money, payments directly to the seller. The seller didn't pay the bank, didn't pay back the forbearance. And when the bank found out, everything was upside down when she tried to sell the house,
Right.
and the whole thing fell apart.
So there's a difference between seller financing and subject to. Can you quick?
So subject to is I would call it a colloquial term to describe seller financing. And there's too many gurus online teaching you how to do that. Essentially, what you're doing is a non-qualified assumption of that mortgage. And the way it should be done correctly is you have a separate mortgage contract between you and the seller, and the original seller still has that mortgage, and the servicer pays those off. Now, the correct way to do that is through the use of a trust. But I don't want to get into the practice of law here. When we do those things, we hire an attorney to do it for us because that's the right way to do it.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that's one of the things that most agents don't necessarily understand. How do you recommend if somebody wants to learn more about getting involved in maybe a seller financing, where you just go to YouTube, or where should they go to kind of?
Well, I think you should probably find a title company that knows how to manage those transactions and learn from that title company.
Got it.
Or work with someone who's done these multiple times before. Right. So the key, I think, there is the title company, but the more important thing is a mentor, someone who's done it before, to make sure you do it correctly. Because ultimately you're doing it to make an income, but you need to make sure the people in the transaction are being taken care of and they're getting what they expect to.
Right.
Because many of the sellers, I think, in these transactions don't actually understand what's happening. And I think that's incorrect and wrong and unethical, potentially illegal.
So I see this working for a few different people, right? So let's say somebody owns a home and they're in trouble in the market, right? They don't want to hit foreclosure, but they can get out of a bad situation by maybe doing seller financing, right? So that could be one avenue. The other thing to think about too is, like, let's say somebody who bought a home for $250,000, right? The market's gone up crazy. So now let's say that home is worth $700,000. I mean, here's my example. I bought a home here in Austin for $275,000. I sold it right at the $250,000 break even. Well, it's 500. So I almost made 500 on it between my wife and I. So we didn't have to pay taxes. But let's say somebody is now in that tax threshold where they're going to have to pay taxes on that. Doing seller financing can give them some cash in their pocket, and then turn around and also give them a monthly payment on that, right?
Right.
And not have to pay taxes.
Right. So let me give you 3 examples, two that I've done, and then one that I think more seniors probably should do. One is some land that I purchased that eventually became a subdivision.
Okay.
So we bought the land, and I knew as is, if we needed to, we could take and resell that land and at least get our money back, if not a profit. So put down a down payment, started making interest-only payments to the seller, and during that process, we got the land entitled, meaning the permission to build an actual subdivision, which had 107 lots. As soon as we started building that, we got a construction loan, paid off the seller.
Okay.
That's a perfect use of owner financing that makes sense for everybody. It shows our commitment to the seller, but it gives us the ownership in the land. So when we get our construction loan, we now have the equity in that land to help us with the equity contribution to the construction loan. So that makes perfect sense. In the infill space, which is redevelopment of land inside the city, when you take down the land, it can be very expensive to get a hard money loan. For example, you could pay a couple, 2, 3 points. Now the rates are better, 11, 12% interest. And so this would allow me to pay the seller more because I don't have to pay the origination points. I don't have to pay the appraisal fee. I don't have to pay it 13%. So I might be able to pay that seller $25,000 or $50,000 more for their land by giving them a security interest today. And 6 months later, I pay off the loan when I start building my project. So that's a great use of owner financing that's totally in the benefit of the seller. They always have security in their land, so if I screw up, they get the property back. Right? So it's actually a very good deal for him. The other piece that I think really makes sense for people that own their property free and clear is if they sell their home, particularly if they're not living there, they may end up with a big capital gains tax that's due immediately. Where if they sell with owner financing, they can get a stream of payments that's now taxed as interest income. While somebody else moves into the home, and then that becomes part of their income so they don't have to deplete their assets from their investment accounts. Right now, your investment accounts are returning 15 to 20% per year. And if you're having to take money out of those to fuel your life expenses, you're better off taking a sale on owner financing and get interest payments off your property. And then when you pass away, that contract steps up in basis. Because many people say, I don't want to sell because when I die, my kids are going to get the home with a stepped up in basis. Well, if they have a contract for sale or a true sale, they're getting payments, that contract steps up in basis also. So they get the same benefit, but they get the cash flow now while still preserving wealth for their kids. Right. And if there's any exchange in the estate tax laws, which there's always talk of, I don't see it happening, but it's certainly possible, where that threshold lowers, it also helps start moving some of those assets out of their name to avoid paying estate taxes when they die, or call it a death tax, so to speak.
Wow.
So there's some complicated stuff. And when you get into those situations, you need to have a team of people, right? So you're going to have the estate lawyer, you should have a CPA, financial planner, and I think the real estate person is the natural to bring that team together. While I feel knowledgeable on each of those topics, I always want to have one of those experts there on that table because we don't want to miss anything because we're talking about a family's financial future, legacy, all those things. So.
So there's a lot there. We could unpack this topic, I think, for quite a bit more.
Or even like, long-term care, senior care, what happens when people move into assisted care or independent living. Many times they have to sell the house. The average cost for assisted living is like $6,500 per month, and it's only going to get worse. And if people are either depleting their retirement account that was growing at 15 to 17% to be able to do that, or they can take a contract on their house and use that money to fund their assisted living needs.
What was the loan that people were doing for a while there? A lot of seniors use the loan where they basically stay in their house, live in their house, but the bank's paying them. What's that called?
So reverse mortgage.
Reverse, there you go.
I think had gotten a bad rap, the initial first round of those, but the reverse mortgage has its use for somebody who needs to get cash flow out of the house, or to purchase a house is actually a great use of it if that's going to be your literal forever house. Right. And so just an example, I had a client bought a home roughly $500,000, right? She called her financial planner. She got $500,000. We closed on that house. So now she's in her home, forever house, right? But what we didn't know was the market was going to drop 20%. So that house now is worth probably about $450,000. But that's totally irrelevant because she's not planning on selling it, right? And it means her taxes are going to go down. So it's actually a good thing that the home she bought is worth less. What isn't a good thing is she took $500,000 out of her stock account, which would have grown 15% per year for the last 3 years, which would now be worth, over $600,000. So if she would have gotten a reverse mortgage, she could have taken half of that amount out, bought the house, and that her account would be back up approximately to where it was. So I don't say that was a real estate mistake. What that was not putting the team together mistake, right?
Right.
And so sometimes you look back and you think, what's a better way for me to approach this market? And sometimes it's not your place to actually put together the team. Your client calls, past client says she wants to buy a house, you're going to sell the house. But that's one case I think as real estate agents, we all could have done better because we all are going to run into these situations over and over again. And the more you know, the better you can help people.
Yeah, I love that. Let's talk about flips and wholesale because you did you've done some flips this last year. I think a lot of people maybe don't think flips are valuable anymore since the market's kind of been declining, right? Over the last 3 years has declined. So what about flips? Is that something you're seeing your investors get into? Is that something you're into?
Yes, yes, and yes. So this is an interesting space where I talked earlier that where I'm seeing the big price drops are homes that really were investor properties but weren't priced like investor properties, and then they sell for a lot less to an investor, where they would have been better off just selling it to an investor to start with. And so through that process, we have investors that are still buying homes and flipping them, although they're very cautious, but with some good advice and also some good expertise from our clients, they're getting top dollar when they sell. So that part's working really well. And then we just started doing them ourselves because if you're an agent, kind of my philosophy is offer it to your client first, but if it's a good deal, just buy it yourself. And so last year, 4 deals. Right now we have 4 flips in progress. And through doing that, the cool part is through our own marketing, through probate attorneys, and through people we know, we're getting referred a lot of these projects. The second is that a lot of the wholesalers in town were the first call and the last call. And what that means is we're on the preferred list because they know that we execute and our clients execute when we get the deals. And then at the end, if they haven't found a buyer, we're the last call. So if they're going to go back to the seller to try to get a better price or to save a deal, we're able to get some of those below what any investor would get going to them directly. And so that part's pretty huge. So like I have an agent on my team, Max Son, who's just amazing. He put together 8 deals in like 6 weeks like that with various wholesalers, either to ourselves, to himself without me as his partner, and to other clients. Being able to make things happen because we built such a high degree of trust within that network, I guess is probably the right word to say about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how would somebody get involved in doing flips? And like, what are some of the pitfalls of getting in flips right now?
Well, the challenge with PITs is not understanding the scope of work.
Okay.
One. Number two, either not being a contractor or not having a good relationship with a contractor. I was talking with one of our GCs this morning and saying, like, if somebody were to invest in these projects, the trust involved and, wiring the guy a deposit of 40 grand or 60 grand or whatever the amount is, and letting the person do the work. So that's the part is having a good contractor relationship. The third is not understanding the numbers. Right? Then the fourth part, which is probably the bigger piece, is not understanding how to be a professional borrower. So
Okay.
I've seen contractors, not literally, but writing their construction estimate in crayon on a piece of cardboard and wondering why they can't get financing,
Right.
or responding to an ad that says 100% financing and padding in a bunch of GC fees to themselves in the middle of the contract and wondering why they can't get the funding.
How do you get financing on a flip?
One, you need to have a really tight personal financial statement that's 100% accurate. You need to have a great biography of your prior work experience. If you've never done a flip, you're going to have a partner if you want financing, period. Just end of story. You need somebody on the team with experience. 3, you need to have an accurate budget of what things are going to cost because the person looking to lend you money will understand what that budget should be. You need to have a good assessment of the after construction sale value, and you need to be realistic with what that is because the bank also understands that probably better than you do.
Yep.
And then 3, you need to have the liquidity not only to fund the project, but the liquidity to actually fund the work before you get draws in construction. So it's a decent list. Hopefully you could itemize what I just said. But
Yeah.
so we have a folder system where we basically, I call it like filling the buckets on each of those items. So when we go for a project, we can send it to the bank. They can see that we know what we're doing. And we've gotten deals funded and closed within a week.
So you're not going to traditional banks though, right? You're not going to CMG or Real Mortgage, right? Who are you going to to get these?
Well, there's various lenders around town that are direct. They're lenders. They actually lend the money. So we're going to those. I have one that I got a lender from a past client, an attorney, who lends money on land.
Okay.
I send him the package. We close a week later.
Yeah, that's the tough one. I've had a lot of clients that want to buy land. They reach out, I want to buy land, and then it doesn't have septic on it, doesn't have water on it, doesn't have electricity on it, and then you go talk to somebody to try to buy that land, and there's really a handful of land lenders in the state of Texas.
Well, there's a whole bunch of them, but they're not traditional lenders.
Yeah.
They'll work with brokers, but they don't typically work with brokers. They're local banks. They want a relationship with the bank.
Yeah.
They want the person to make deposits at their bank. They want to know who they are.
Yeah.
Right. So from the lending perspective, you want lenders that you can actually go sit in their office and sit face to face and explain who you are and your plan, because all of those things matter. So you're getting a residential loan. You're going to go in, they're going to run your credit score. They're going to look at your employment. They're going to look at your ratios, and it's a yes or no, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, subject to the appraisal. You're looking at a development loan or a land or a flip loan. They want to know, who is this person?
Right.
Right? What do their financials actually look like? And then the narrative is this a guy that we can trust? Because a lot of the investors are some wealthy individual that's funding their loans, and they want to say who's this Jeremy Knight guy? Is he trustworthy?
Right.
Who's Jeff McElroy? Has he ever done this before? What deals is he associated with? What has he done? So those loans are also going to be lent based on your character. They're also going to be lent based on who recommends you, because on those loans, they're acting for personal references, and these banks will call your personal references and say, hey, is Jeff McElroy a trustworthy guy? Right?
Yeah.
And so it takes time to build those relationships in the industry. And without those, and you only need like somewhere between 3 and 5 deals before you can do it on your own. So if somebody were to come in, to go back to your question, and they wanted to start doing flips, I would do, and if you had no money, you need to find the deal, right? Then you need to ask if you can stay in the deal as an owner, so you get paid at closing, and you can show a bank, I'm part of this deal, I got paid in closing, right? That's one deal. You do that 3 times, you're likely to be able to get a loan on your own.
Got it. Okay.
Right? If you have money, you need to find somebody and say, hey, let me put money into your deal. I promise I won't get in your way. I want to learn.
Right. Okay.
And then your name's on the deal, and that's one deal, right? And what's the other scenario? I think those are the 2 scenarios, either with money or without, right?
Right.
And I can tell you that's exactly what I did. And then learning to put together the loan package, I went to a guy that does loans, and I said, could you show me a loan package that you put together that got approved? And so he showed me, he took off the confidential information. He showed me, this is what got approved by our board. Why did it get approved? And I said, what happens if you don't get all these things in the application? He goes, we basically stop looking at it. And so I took all that information and realized what I had to do to become a professional borrower was do all of those things, build the relationships. Number one, be trustworthy, know what you're doing, and have all your entire package put together. And now I can get money relatively quickly, as long as I'm also underwriting the right projects.
Right. Right.
So,
and where's the best place to find a flip if somebody's looking for flips?
From me or Max.
You're Max. But I mean, if I don't reach out to, I mean, obviously I recommend reaching out to you or somebody that actually has done it. But like,
so if somebody were to say, I'm in Seattle, who should I call in Seattle? Without putting a name on it, I would say I would find a real estate wholesaler, or I would find an agent who's doing flips. And probably the wholesaler is going to give you the best access to flip properties, or with a group like ours that knows how to find them and has those relationships, we can help you too, and we can save you a ton of time, because even the wholesalers are going to be judging you and your character and your experience because you're just another guy who says you have cash.
Right.
And you may or may not have cash.
Yeah.
Right. So you need to prove that you can exercise, even to the wholesale community, which is a valuable part of the industry, even though sometimes they get a bad reputation.
Yeah, I run into a lot of people that say they have money or they have stuff, and then you do some digging, and they don't.
And I can't believe I just sat here and told you to call a wholesaler. But the reason why is they're investing the time and money in phone calls and direct mail to get the leads. And there's a symbiotic relationship with them. So with our team, we have a way that we help them put those type of listings on the MLS to get them more exposure if it's appropriate. We have, it's called a novation. It's legal, it's correct, the brokerage approves of it. So we are sometimes listing properties that are under contract with wholesale as long as we know that the seller and owner has full knowledge that we're doing it.
Yeah.
And so there's a symbiotic relationship that can exist between wholesalers and brokerages.
I want to ask you, because you do a lot of different types of investing, right? As far as with investors or for yourself, obviously we've talked flips. What are some of the biggest, funnest deals you put together? If you had like just your top 3 hits from this year, like interesting deals that you put together that not a regular agent will put together.
Well, I can tell my subdivision story, which is really goes back to 2024. And actually you're a big part of it because you introduced me to the agents that were selling it. Was the initial thought was the price was good. Let's put it under contract. But at that point I didn't have land subdivision experience. So I found somebody who did, and we put it under contract. And I told them, I said, we're going to put this under contract. I'm going to try to sell this for the second you get under contract wholesale, which number one validates, because if nobody wants it wholesale, then why are we even buying it, right? But if you develop it, I'm the agent that sells it for you. That was the deal. But otherwise we're 50-50 partners. We have to put in any money. I'll also be your partner. He said, it's a deal. So through that process, I start doing the underwriting with the city, learning about the land. And through this whole process, I'm realizing that I don't really know what I'm doing. And so I'm Googling things while I'm talking to the city, trying to work the deal at the same time, trying to find a buyer for the project. And then what I didn't know at the time was I actually knew exactly what I was doing, and I was doing everything correctly, but I didn't get the validation because I had nobody to tell me, hey, you're doing it right, keep going, other than we kept getting interest. So through that process, we found a buyer for the project, or a presumed buyer for the project, who wanted the project. I didn't want them to go around me. So I said, let's talk to the city together. So I got 2 things out of that. One was I got to hear the questions they asked, and I made sure that we were still in the deal together. I still didn't have a contract. Then we get to the end of this where they're supposed to close, and I have to close. We ask for owner financing. They say they'll put 10% down, maybe 20. So I get 10. I tell them I want 20. So now I have it already sold for a price about double of what I got it for, and a 10% spread on the interest. I just have to wait for them to get their construction loan. Well, my partner in the deal says he doesn't want to do that deal with them. So we structure it with everybody's knowledge what was happening, no tricks, that their down payment pays him off, and then I stay in the deal to get my other half. And so we met. It was one of these Snowmageddon days. We drove to Brenham to meet them in person. I explained to them that I'm going to do the deal with them, but I explained all of the mechanics of what's happening. Their money's going to be used to pay off him, that I'm only putting 10% down, they're putting 20, so complete transparency, which is the only way to do business.
Right.
And I said, but what I would like to do is stay involved with the project. So I'll put my equity into the deal and stay in the project, and I'm going to essentially trick you into teaching me development.
Yeah.
And so now we have a new entity, and we have a development partnership. They actually had their agents brought us the buyer. So we structured the sale to the end user, which was already basically in place. So now I have a purchase executed, a buyout of a partner, a new buyer, a new partnership, and a sale to a builder, all within a period of about 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
And all we had to do was build the subdivision, which we've now done the takedowns, and we're developing it. And they're building homes in a community that needed homes.
So 107 homes, and you'll be selling all of those.
Correct. Well, the homes are going to be sold by the builder. They have their own in-force sales team.
Okay.
So it's a regional builder that builds well over 1,000 homes a year.
Okay, so you did a land development play. What's another big deal that you were involved in this year?
Let's see. There's so many little ones and small ones.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I think is interesting is like when I got that award, I wasn't even going to apply because I was just showing up and doing the work. We had lots of small deals and big deals, but I all treated them myself. So Beginning of the year last year, there was a family that I had met where there was a call off my Google ad page. This is how it started. And the call was, what does an acre of land cost in Del Valle, Texas? Actually, I think she said Garfield, Texas. And it was kind of a weird call, but I pulled over and listened to what she had to say. I got her name, and but we didn't really go much farther than that. So I look up the name, and I see her name all over the land ID map. I say, wow, this family owns a lot of land in the Del Valle, or about 6-7 miles from Tesla. And so she doesn't give me her email address. So I send her a Federal Express to her house with a nice letter thanking her for her call, because we send handwritten thank you notes to people that we meet. And that goes to her house in Los Angeles. Then I get a call from a relative who happens to be an attorney a couple weeks later. We have a conversation. And then I get a call from another attorney who's the attorney handling the estate of this family. And we go through this process of they have to execute part of the trust, and then they want to sell the land. So this takes about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. They tell me that I'm going to list the property, but I've already been marketing and I have complete due diligence. I have tons of information on this property. We had gotten an offer initially for a really big amount, but the market dropped. And so expectations were also high and had to change those. So now we know we have the, we know we're going to get the listing, but there's 14 family members, and all 14 family members have to agree or the deal doesn't work.
Yeah, that's tough.
And we have a couple, the other family members don't know me, and rightfully so. It's like, who is this guy and why is he the agent versus somebody else, et cetera, et cetera. So we end up doing some marketing. There's another piece of land that's under a receivership that they can let me sell, but I still don't have the listing signed. And so one of our processes is we looked on the land ID map, and we will contact the neighbors. We'll send FedExes to the neighbors, and also any LLCs or people that look like they could execute on this. We build our relationships with the people around that are likely big landowners, have the ability to buy and sell multiple pieces, and introduce us to other people. So we send a very friendly note. We have a listing. We wanted to know if you'd be interested in this property before it's offered to the public, or if you'd like to sell with us, or if there's anything else we can do to help you with. So I get a call from a guy. He says, hey, do you mind if I go drive the property? Well, it's about a 40-minute drive to get out there. And I said, well, I'd prefer to meet you there, because business and real estate is done face-to-face, not over phone, not over text message, not on IG likes. It's done face-to-face. So I drive out there and meet the guy, and he's a good guy. And he said, I have to confess, I've already driven all over the land, but thought it was interesting you wanted to meet me in person. I said, yeah, that's how we do stuff. And I said, so the other question I always ask, is there anything I can do to help you personally or professionally? What are you going on? You looking for anything else? He goes, no. I said, you know anybody who's looking for anything else? Because we always ask. He says, my brother's looking for some land. And I said, well, I have something just down the road. And I was referring to this 120-acre piece. And he says, he might be interested in that. Send me the information. So I sent him the information. And then 2 days later, I'm showing his brother the 120 acres. I'm still working. I still don't have a listing agreement. Even though I still don't have a listing agreement, I have his brother who wants to make an offer, and I have 3 offers just working my network on this land. And the guy across the street really wants it because he has his business across the street. And we end up putting together a contract with almost no contingencies, because the due diligence package I provided was good. Because I started local, he also understood the land and didn't need a bunch of time. And he's like super legit guy, right? And so 30 days later, we're able to close this transaction for this family. Well, he ended up getting a loan, but the offer was cash. So $4.4 million sale, completed within 30 days. Got the listing signed literally the day, and then the next day we were signing contracts.
Wow.
So that was a fun one. I can't believe that didn't come off the top of my head, but the true beauty of that was how gracious the family was. Yeah. And the woman, Eula, how wonderful she was, and Homer, and the rest of the family. And when I finally earned their trust, it it felt good to help them achieve
Right.
that goal. That was a pretty amazing sale, but it was a result of 2 years of effort and really investing in getting to know this family while still learning the land piece of it. So that was a big deal. And in some ways, I would have loved to have that on the market to get the credit for it,
Right.
because it's something that happened that nobody really knows about.
Yeah.
But those are the things that make real estate worthwhile.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's most of the deals, the big deals, especially in the luxury space, don't happen on market. What are your, let's go over some tips for buyers and sellers in 2026. What should buyers be looking out for? What should sellers be looking out for in Austin?
Well, let's start with buyers, right? So number one is work with a local lender, not a call center, right? Someone that truly can understand your situation, somebody who's willing to work face to face. Real estate is a local business, so if you want to shop on rates, shop and then talk to somebody local. We can refer you. That's number one. Number two, pay close attention to the condition of the home. Number three, if the home doesn't have perfect condition, it's time to negotiate, and don't be afraid to do so. But if you see something nice, everybody else sees the same thing, and just pull the trigger and buy.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing too is a lot of people are waiting for rates to go down. The challenge is that's when more people flood the market when rates come down. I mean,
When rates go down, the homes that are in good condition are going to go up in price.
yeah.
I think the homes that are not in good condition are still going to sit. That's why my prediction is relatively flat. I could be wrong on this one, right? But
Yeah.
I think you're going to see an overall increase, but you're going to see that increase in the homes in good condition, and the homes that need work are going to just kind of stay where they are, because nobody's going
Yeah.
to buy a crappy home because it's got a low interest rate.
Well, that's the one thing the pandemic covered up really well,
Yeah.
was that homes that shouldn't have been listed. Even back then, you had homes that were sitting on the market for a while. It's like, why the heck is this home sitting in the market? It's got foundation
Yeah.
issues, all these other problems. Sellers 2026, what should they be looking out for?
What sellers should be doing is making sure their home is in good condition before they sell it, number one. Number two is to not be afraid to price it below what they think the market expectation is, and let the market dictate the price, because more people see the home. So we had several homes in the $1 million+ range and homes in the low range. We did it at all price points where we priced it slightly below the market. We had multiple offers, and that price rose above what we thought we could get for the homes.
Because you price it,
Right.
accordingly.
But we also have systems for, I call it like extreme follow-up with agents, with buyers. So we're actually doing the work. We're not just waiting for offers, right?
Right.
So
That's what cracks me about the car world. I bought this beautiful car that's off camera over here. A different car would be sitting there today. I had the dealership just follow it up with me. I gave him a really good offer on it.
Yeah.
It sat for 3 months, and instead of calling me back to see if I was interested, which I still was, they didn't, and they sold it well below what I would have paid for it.
yeah,
So I think that's the same thing with the sellers. If you get a good, for sellers, if you get a good offer, don't hesitate, just take it and negotiate, because the thing is that what happens if the market does continue to drop? Now you're going to be sitting longer on the market and even lose even more money.
so we had. This is also advice for sellers: is if you see a silly offer, don't get offended. Just counter with what you would take. So
Right.
we had one where we started. Actually, I advised at 800,000. He wanted to go 875. We agreed at 850 because as agents, we devise, the client decides. An offer came in at 750, which is the classic negotiation strategy.
Yeah.
We're 50,000 high, come 50,000 low. And then he just refused to do anything. I kept following up with the agent. The agent was great. We ended up, I said, just give us a higher price. We get you a counter. I know that's not good negotiating strategy on your side. We ended up selling that house for 825.
Wow.
But the home was in not awesome shape, but good shape. He did all the repairs. We got through the inspections. There really wasn't anything that they found. We were able to close, but I think I probably had 9 conversations with the other agent before we had an offer to even get a counter.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work. So that becomes the next part: is you don't ask the agent, what's your marketing strategy, because it's the wrong question.
Right.
The question is what process, well, there's lots of questions. One of the questions is explain how you're following up on people who showed, right? Explain how you're going to track people. That's part of the marketing piece. But really, it's some of these I know we have a lot of tech people here. You get those behavioral interview questions.
Yeah.
Like one of the questions could be is, if you get an offer that's ridiculously low, explain what you've done in the past and how you turn that into a sale, right? So another question, which is a great question for a seller to ask, is if me as the seller tells you to do something that you know is incorrect, how are you going to handle that situation? Give me an example when that's happened in the past, how you turned that around and got a sale out of it, because you're going to get an idea of how well that agent can act under pressure and how they can respond, and if they actually have gone through it, right? If they haven't gone through a tough deal, do you really want them representing you?
Yeah, right. I had a situation. Yeah, I'll tell this on the other one.
Yeah.
But I had a situation this last year where I walked away from the seller completely. We'll tell on the other
Yeah.
video. But well, cool. All right, so these are all the tips that I think that are great tips. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe. If you want Jeff's contact information, just reach out to us and we'll get that over to you. If you are somebody looking to maybe do some different investing strategies, we appreciate you coming to this channel. Check this video out right here, because I think this is the next video that you're absolutely going to want to watch. I'm Jeremy Knight, your favorite Austin realtor, with Jeff McElroy, probably your second favorite Austin realtor. All right, we'll see you in the next video.
Not a competition.